cat's out the bag, all right? I think I got more blood clots, man. It don't make sense. I'm hurting like crazy. I got the doctor's appointment Monday to see what time it is. So that's what's going on. I'm not getting blood to my leg. That's why my leg is throbbing.
That was Coach Prime, of course, talking post-game after Saturday's contest. He was seen there with no shoe on his left foot, but through the years, he's had problems since at Jackson State and now at Colorado, the similar thing with those issues. But when it comes to his team, they blew a 14-0 lead in the second week in a row and had 4 turnovers. And despite their record at 2-4, let's just say Coach Sanders has been able to find some talent, recruit for his roster. But right now, in terms of that national ranking for that class of 2026, they're 69th overall, conference ranking 14, 0 5-stars. We've seen in the past, he's had a few come through. Travis Hunter, obviously the biggest name, 4 4-stars and 9 3-stars. So we'll see what happens the rest of the way for 2026. All right, for more of the recruiting world, my guys here, Brandon Huffman and Tom Lloyd tapping in. And Brandon, I'll start with you. In terms of the Buffs and Deion and recruiting, what does their future look like so far?
Well, I mean, it's not like Deion has exactly set the world on fire when it comes to high school recruiting. I mean, he's made no bones about it. He wants to recruit the portal. He's used the phrase, we ain't hard to find, but they have not found the recruiting success that I think Colorado thought they would with the buzz with Deion. They've been tremendous in the portal, but in terms of high school rankings, you see that. The 14th ranked class in the Big 12, just barely in the top 70. They have 4 4-stars in the 2026 class, but it's a matter of can they sustain it, and is there going to be any buzz if Deion were to step down from that post? It wasn't like Colorado had great success prior to Deion when it came to recruiting, and the remarkable thing is that he hasn't really focused on in-state recruiting, and Colorado is kind of going under a renaissance of elite talent with a number of 4-star players in the subsequent classes in state. They have a national powerhouse in Cherry Creek High School in Inglewood right there in their backyard, and they just haven't made an emphasis there. And so with the focus on recruiting nationally, they have not had the return that I think they anticipated, but it also might be by design. It might be because they want to hit the portal. Yet when you have a Heisman Trophy winner, when you have the buzz that Colorado has had the last couple of years, you would think you would capitalize on that and try to sustain it from a recruiting standpoint nationally, and they just have not done so yet while he's there. So if he were to leave, if he were to step down, would that hurt and dampen their future even more when it comes to recruiting? It would be trending that way.
When it comes to Colorado, negative recruiting has been a thing ever since day one when it comes to Deion Sanders being in Boulder. And that has been a constant thing. Just last year, all the chatter and buzz was about, is Deion Sanders going to return to Colorado? Is he going to head and coach in the NFL? And I think now with the health concerns being at an all-time high and the fact that he's bringing them up, he's saying he's hurting, he's saying there's more blood clots, sadly, negative recruiting, which is recruiting in itself, is going to be at an all-time high. So Brandon mentioned it. They got multiple 4-stars. They've landed guys in the past like Jordan Seaton along the offensive line, Juju Lewis at quarterback. I mean, these guys are at Colorado because they want to play for Deion Sanders. So when it comes to his health, if he's not doing well, if things aren't moving in the right direction, negative recruiting is going to continue. Poaching is going to happen in the offseason. I mean, these guys are in Boulder because they want to play for Deion Sanders. So if he leaves and he's not the coach of the Buffaloes moving forward, his choice, this class headlined by top 247 defensive lineman Emmanuel Ruffin. You got top 247 or 4-star cornerback Preston Ashley. There's some talent in this class. In my opinion, it's going to fall apart without Deion Sanders. He is that important. But again, negative recruiting will be at an all-time high when it comes to Colorado recruiting.
Tom, you mentioned 2 of those guys that are already currently on the team. In terms of maybe if there is some change, do you see them possibly jumping into the portal like we've seen others when there's a coaching change?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. That's going to be a big issue for Colorado. I mean, the class is going to fall apart. The team is going to fall apart because, again, these guys, it's very different. Like, I used to cover Notre Dame for a very long time. Notre Dame was always going to get guys no matter who the head coach was. It was about life after football. It was about Notre Dame, what it stood for, what it was about on and off the field. When it comes to Colorado, it's a program on the rise because Deion Sanders is there. They want to play for Deion Sanders. So if he's not there, it's going to be very difficult, not only for Colorado recruiting in the short term, but also no matter who they bring in for the future.
As we all know, Coach Prime has been everything Colorado since he jumped on the scene there in Boulder. Brandon, I want to come to you because Penn State, we saw them as maybe on the rise before they ran into the buzzsaw UCLA on Saturday there, a shocking one. But if you're James Franklin going forward, how do you turn this around if you're trying to impress recruits? And is that even possible at this point?
Well, I mean, you're hoping that the 2026 guys don't jump off the boat because they're worried about how the last couple of games are going. There's a lot of buzz. Are we going to see a soft reset there at Penn State? And by that, do I mean, does James Franklin realize that maybe it's not going to happen there? Does he end up leaving, pulling something similar to what John Calipari did when he left Kentucky for Arkansas, where you get somebody who's fired up to have you as a coach, but maybe the program you're at right now is tired of you there? Then what kind of impact would that have on the recruiting trail? James Franklin is one of the most relational coaches in college football when it comes to recruiting. Players go to Penn State because of the tradition. They go there for, obviously, their development, but they also go there largely because of that relationship with James Franklin. So if he were to leave Penn State, first, if you're Penn State, you got to make sure you're upgrading at that position. But at the same time, if you're James Franklin, you are the key to so many of those players picking Penn State. So if you go somewhere else, if you try to do a reset at another program, are those players committed to Penn State? Are they committed to James Franklin and his staff? Does that help him somewhere else? So I think with this class, it's the number 16 class in the country. It's got 7 players in the top 247 in 2026. It's also a very senior and veteran-laden roster where there's going to be the need for a lot of those younger players to come in. They may have to hit the portal hard because so many players came back to run it back at Penn State. But can they sustain this if it continues to, he goes 9-3, 10-2, make it to the semifinals last year, but it was just never quite good enough. Does that eventually catch up with them on the recruiting trail? I think the way these last 2 games have gone, and specifically the UCLA game, now that could really start to impact you in the 27 class. But if he were to depart, that's going to have a huge impact on the 2026 class.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And look, the Oregon loss was one thing. You let Oregon beat you. It is what it is. It happens all over the country. Good teams beat good teams. UCLA, they lost to the Bruins, a team that hadn't won a game, in front of about 125 people there in Los Angeles. That is a huge, huge problem. But again, James Franklin is not the big problem. These fans are calling for his head. They want him to be fired. If you fire James Franklin out of the blue, you better have somebody ready waiting in the wings as a huge upgrade. And right now, that's not possible. These recruits, from the recruiting perspective, these guys want to play for James Franklin. He is the reason that they are committed to Penn State. Kimon Spell, the #1 running back in 2027. He is fully committed to Penn State because of James Franklin. He's still looking around, but again, James Franklin leaves, this 2026 class, Kimon Spell in 27, they will completely look elsewhere, and this is going to fall apart. So again, James Franklin is a huge real reason that they are committed to Penn State. You lose him, you lose the bulk of the class, including all the guys currently playing for the Nittany Lions.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're looking somewhere else to play Big Ten football, you have a big weekend if you're Illinois and Indiana. Top 3 opponents visiting both of those teams. They're playing both of those teams in Ohio State and Oregon. Brandon, I want you to be Illinois, and Tom, you're Indiana. How big and important is this weekend for those recruits?
Well, it's huge. We talked about this 2 weeks ago when Washington hosted Ohio State. You don't want to get ran out of the building. You want to be competitive. If you're not going to win, you want to at least make it look like the gap is not wide. Now, most of college football and Ohio State, that gap is wide. We saw with Illinois how much they scuffled against Indiana on the road a couple of weeks ago, but then they bounced back with a nice win over USC. Their only 2027 commit is actually from the West Coast, and Candid Lopati, a quarterback out of Utah. But this is one that the entire country would have an attention to. If you can beat Ohio State. We saw with Washington and Ohio State, yeah, that was the same night that Alabama was playing Georgia. That was the same night that Oregon was playing Penn State. But Washington hung with Ohio State for a good chunk of that game, and recruits were impressed. So if Illinois can do the same thing, and then if they can pull off the unthinkable and get that upset, that only builds more buzz. They're going to get a visit from the #1 junior college offensive tackle in the country, in TJ Taylor, this fall. And this is the kind of win that resonates in the now. Even though the majority of the 2026 class is done, you're going to have to do your heavy lifting with 2027. They could get an impact junior college offensive lineman in TJ Taylor, and a win over Ohio State could certainly be big for Brett Bielema and his class.
Curt Cignetti, I am a big Curt Cignetti guy. I think he brings so much juice, and I hope, selfishly, as just a college football fan, I hope he stays at Indiana for the long haul, because this guy, like I said, he's got the juice, he's got the charisma. Kids, recruits, they gravitate towards him. I mean, behind the scenes, he and his staff have things so buttoned up in Bloomington. They're recruiting the right guys that fit their program. They're finding those 3 stars that really matter, and they are turning them into difference makers in Bloomington. So there is a huge opportunity here to go and beat Oregon and show the country how big of a deal this Indiana football program is and how big of a deal Curt Cignetti is. So you go into Eugene, you upset Oregon. For them in the building, they don't consider it an upset. They feel confident in what they're doing. I just think that Indiana, Cignetti, they are here for the long haul. This isn't just a one-off. They are going to continue landing the right guys, landing difference makers, finding those diamonds in the rough. And I'm telling you, Indiana fans, you need to be fired up because as long as Cignetti's there, winning will stay in Bloomington.
Both coaches, you are on the clock when it comes to Illinois and Indiana. Brandon and Tom, appreciate as always giving us everything we need when it comes to recruiting. Don't forget, you can get all that information on the College Football YouTube page. All you got to do is use that QR code to subscribe and listen to all the content as we head into this new weekend. Of course, Indiana and Oregon, that is on CBS as well.